Morning guys, just thought I would do a very simple video this time, as it's something I've been interested in doing for a while and it's taken a little bit of time to do. It's 100 lab runs. So these, to just jump straight into it, I've done 100 lab runs. If we go down and we hide, well, we don't need to hide it actually, you see here, 100 eternal labyrinths. So we can look at the currency that we've made and we can break it down a little bit for you off 1,000 lab runs. My atlas is at 40. I've pretty much done 40 maps just for atlas bonus, and I haven't mapped really at all this league. I've had one wonder build that I got to about level 80 through like aqueducts and didn't enjoy, and I'm currently leveling one build where now I'm starting to map. So now it's getting a bit difficult. Whoa, I just stroked out. It's getting a bit difficult to separate the currency, so I'm just going to make this video before it all gets merged and confused. I've made 15 exalts, 891 chaos, and also on my other character I have bought a 250 chaos weapon, I have bought a 30c belt, and some other bits and bobs, so to call it round about 300 chaos. We've made roughly 1,100, 200 chaos with 15 exalts, which are roughly going at 30c, so you know, you do the maths. It's a fair amount of currency for 100 lab runs. People say the lab's too overpowered, people say it needs to be nerfed, but honestly I think it's got a good balance. I haven't blitzed the lab, I've gone slowly, I've done almost full key runs to my best ability, which means normally I'm doing 5 or 6 minimum. That's typically what I do. I do all the shrines, I do the twice enchanted if it's in the shrines, you know. Sometimes I'll run the twice enchanted prophecy. If you see here in my offerings, you know, I've got twice enchanted, I've got some offerings left. I have a lot of these random enchants that have sold. We sold one yesterday, some lightning arrow one that had just been in this tab for ages, and someone finally bought it for 10c. There's another lightning arrow one there. I don't know if that's different, but yeah, we sold all different kinds of ones that you wouldn't think sell. So what I tend to do is get a load of helmets and I enchant them and just leave them, and then I've kind of got one of each. So for example, the best enchants I've had this league have been righteous fire damage. However, that was on the wrong helmet, so I only got about 90 chaos for that when it could have been hundreds. I've had a few dark packed cast speeds and I think AoE, but no damage. The damage is the real money maker. But honestly, I haven't really had many enchants. Most of my money has come through this, and this is where I think the lab is balanced somewhat. Most of my money has come through straight gem sales. Now, the later it goes into the league, the longer it goes on, gems won't be as wanted, they won't be as much money, but they still always will work. So what happens is I have a shop tab. I'm just running you through how I made the currency to maybe give you a bit more of a rundown, because it can be a bit confusing looking at this, and I'll break it down for you. What happened was I would ID the gem. If it was over 2c, I would price it in here manually. So this is like 10c because there isn't any up, so I thought, oh, I'll just try that. This is 4 chaos, and I haven't really got any left because I haven't been doing the lab now. I've been making 2 new builds, and that's what I did, and I would sell these. A lot of the times when you're in the lab, and one of the reasons why I think it's somewhat balanced, is you miss a lot of sales because you're in the lab. Somebody will say, I want to buy a 2c gem, and you'll be like, I'm in the lab at the moment, I'm sorry, and you know, you miss the sale. Or if you're not online, all these little 1c sales add up. So that's why I think it's important if you're doing the lab to understand that you have to play it a lot. So what happens is I put the expensive gems in here, hopefully they sell. Everything else that I think is like 2c, I put for 1c and just get them insta sold. And anything that's up for an alc, 2 alcs, I just chuck in a 1c tab. At the end of it, these 3 tabs will be full of gems, and if they haven't sold for 2 or 3 days, I will just vend them all. When I vended them all, I get GCPs. I have 148. I think that's worth about 120 chaos, which is about another 4 exalts, I think. And also I've sold 100 more, I think, GCPs. Um, Things that we haven't really discussed are these straight exalts. A lot of these things have come from, in fact, I should take away 150 chaos from this. I should remember that because I sold a 6-link axe, which I didn't get in the lab. That's probably the only big thing I ever sold. Everything else has been purchased through lab money. We had, and this is, if you really want to watch it, the entire time I've been streaming, viewers have been picking the boxes. We've been just trying to get the most amount of currency possible. And we've had, I think, 2 exalts whilst running the lab. 3 exalts from the end game boxes. And all the rest is added up. You know, you get a gem for 10C. You get a couple more gems for 10C. That's 30 chaos. That's an exalt. It's not that difficult. It's just time consuming and it is quite boring. So for me personally, I've never farmed the lab before. So I decided, well, I've never done it. I'll do it to start this league and we'll see how it is. It is quite boring, but I also find mapping somewhat boring. But I just grinded out 100 runs and got some money, and you could make a lot more if you got luckier on an end chance. For the first, I guess, 15 or so labs, I didn't really understand the new lab mechanics because dark shrines were new. They didn't do any negative effects. And stuff like that. And this is pretty much where we've made our money. So I just wanted to show you an update, just a simple video of how much money you can make off doing the lab. But it is time consuming. You do have to play a lot. And you don't... If I was to draw a graph after I've sold this card, 1 second. We sell this card, I'll show you exactly what the lab is like. Because I'm not very good at describing. So if we go to paint, this is what the lab is like, okay? Let's get a pen out. The lab is sort of like... How do we do size? It's like this. Okay. This is what it's like. Okay. Right, and this is like your end game goal here, right? What happens is the more time you play, you steadily just get more and more currency through, hell, just vendoring gems. Very similar to mapping, right? Very similar to mapping. If you just put in time into the game, eventually you reach your goal through selling little gems. You'll get the odd spike in money from enchants. You'll get the odd expensive gem. You might even get the odd little exalt bump. But what happens is it's quite motivating to play the lab because you're steadily making currency. You can see like the overall path of this. This is some James Belton level of math shit. Is like you're always going forwards. Whereas what happens for me when I map is it can look a bit like this for me when I map. It's kind of like, say this is your end game goal here again. When you're mapping, it can be like this. And then, or should I say, it's more like this, okay? It's more like a steady, really slow, but then you might get a spike. Wow, I've just found a one-handed sword that's worth loads of money. And I've got nothing. I've got nothing all day. Oh, there's an exalt. I've got nothing for weeks or days. Oh, there's a good item. Bang, there's an item that's worth a load. And what happens is, you when you map in, for me personally, I know this is a really bad example, but I'm just trying to illustrate my point, is that mapping's not very consistent, and it can be a bit demoralizing, because for me personally, I never get anything whilst mapping. So this happened yesterday, where I got this. I got a Combs Heart, right? That's worth 400 chaos. And if we look at how much I farmed the lab, that's almost half of my currency just off one drop. And yeah, I think that can technically drop in the lab, I think. But that's what happens when you're doing maps, is you get nothing for a long time. So for me, this part here where you're not getting much, I don't really enjoy blasting the maps that much. So this part isn't interesting for me. I'm only interested in these spikes because the actual mapping process is quite boring. So I personally much prefer the lab's steadier level, you know, the little steady climb to reach a new goal, rather than this whole you know, boom, you know. Mapping's very inconsistent. That's just my personal opinion. Some people really enjoy mapping, but this is basically all we've made our money from. We haven't done anything higher than a tier 8 map. We haven't done any guardians. We've just farmed the lab, and I've been making some builds. You can see even with all this currency, I haven't spent anything. I'm still using this rubbishy 5 link. I upgraded my gear the other day, so I now have 7k life, but that's pretty much it. I just wanted to give you this simple video just to show like my thoughts on the lab. Everyone will say, oh, the lab's overpowered, I'm going to go farm the lab. It is, but then it's also, I'm only a 1 sample size. I know everybody makes currency in the lab. Some people might not make as much. Some people might get super lucky on enchants and get 2 barrage and get 20 exalts, and then that's all my work undone. Or, you know, like that, somebody might get a combs early on in the league. They might flip some stuff. They might make loads of money. There's plenty of ways to make money in this game. The lab for me is just a consistent way. So if my luck's down and I'm not finding much in maps, I'll go get my offering and I'll run 4 or 5 labs and I'll see if I get anything. That's how I personally play the game. There's no right or wrong way. I just thought I'd show you what 100 lab runs looks like. The only negative side about running the lab is you don't get any harbinger, so you'll never get a mirror shard. You don't interact with any of the new content. You don't get to do... I haven't done a single harbinger map. I don't even know what it looks like. These things are just what I've picked up, you know, whilst leveling and stuff. And you don't get to interact with it. It is quite boring, but it is steadily rewarding. So there we go. I'll stop rambling now. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. There's plenty of videos on my YouTube channel, my Twitch. Thanks for watching.